facing department, and we do take a lot of pride in that. We also staff a lot of different commissions and committees and meetings throughout the year. Planning Commission, Parks and Rec, Arts and Culture Commission, and Economic Development Authority, all 12 or more meetings per year. And then Housing and Redevelopment Authority are scheduled as needed. So we do provide a lot of staff liaison support to all of those bodies. One of the core duties that we have is to provide critical analysis and development proposals and land use applications. We also manage park and facility rentals and reservations. That includes parks and ball fields. We also manage various city events, special events. Autumn Arts Festival, Project Snowy was a huge success. Paint Night, music in the park, and many, many others. And then we review, like I mentioned earlier, we review and process literally thousands of permits and licenses a year. I tried to put them all into one slide here. I ran out of room. So just to give you an idea, we do quite a bit of work each year with permits and licenses. And to show you, numbers-wise, that amount of work, here is just a total of all of the building permits issued by the Community Development Department. So you can look at building permits, about 1,800 last year. Year-to-date, we're almost at 700. Zoning permits, 90 last year, 63 to date for 2024. Specialty permits, charitable gambling, special events, National Night Out, 68 last year. We're up to 54 already. Business license is a huge part. Liquor and tobacco, vendor license, rental licenses. We had 211 last year and 180 this year. Contractor licenses, you see 119 last year, 56 so far this year, and animal registrations, chickens, beekeeping, kennels, that type of thing. 7 last year, 5 this year. So you've got a total permits and license issued last year of about 2,300, and we're just over 1,000 so far this year. So it's a lot of work on a day-to-day basis, reviewing and issuing all those permits and licenses, and I'm really proud of my staff for all the work that they've done. And then just to touch a little bit on meetings that were staffed by Community Development Department staff. We had 20 council meetings last year, 10 this year so far. Planning Commission, we had 11 last year, 7 this year. Parks and Rec, 10 last year, 6 this year. Arts and Culture, 13 last year, 9 this year. And then a combination of EDA and HRA, 10 last year and 1 so far this year. So a lot of time away, not during normal business hours. We do spend quite a bit of time, our staff here as well. And of course, this would not be possible without our talented and dedicated staff members in the Community Development Department. I want to specifically call out Sarah, Chris, and Mai. Like I mentioned, I've been here for 2.5 months, and I've been incredibly impressed with their work, their workflow, and how they really keep things moving along very smoothly. So I wanted to specifically make sure that I called them out and thank them personally for all their hard work. Over on the inspection side, again, a very integral component to the life safety issues here in North St. Paul. We inspect new construction, remodels, mechanical and plumbing replacements, again, just to make sure that those meet minimum safety standards and building codes, also prevent dangerous issues from arising later on. For building inspections, all of our building, plumbing, and mechanical permit inspections are handled by Rum River Consulting. They've been a fantastic organization to work with. Electrical inspections are all handled by Tokel Inspections, and then rental housing is completed by North St. Paul City staff. On the recreation side, obviously parks is a huge component here in North St. Paul. We have some amazing parks. And we do offer a really easy online park facility and park shelter reservations for residents and visitors. Again, we pulled together some numbers to give you a little comparison. Last year, 299 park rentals, 249 up into this year. And then ball field rentals, 640 throughout an entire year. And we're already almost at 600 this year so far, with a couple months left in the summer fall season. So that's all I have for you this evening. I just wanted to give you an very high level overview of all the work that we do in our department. And again, I'm very impressed with my staff members. Happy to answer any questions. Sure,
Appreciate it.
absolutely.
Appreciate that, thank you.
And I do believe you have a star team for staff.
100%.
He absolutely does. I was very.
Mentioned it today.
Yeah, I mentioned it today. I was very impressed with Sarah in last night's meeting, just how she handles herself in the meeting and, you know, and keeps everybody on task. I was quite impressed with that. Just kind of want to talk about each one of the three departments that he talked about from a budgetary standpoint. So we have the community development budget. What you're seeing there is approximately a $34,000 increase or a 15% increase from the prior year. Again, all of our personnel expenditures include a cost of living increase and then wage step increases. The bigger significant change why this one's up 15% is because there's been a reallocation of the community development director's time. When the community development director's position was established by a prior city manager, when he got approval from city council for that position, he had allocated 45% of the community development's time to the Economic Development Authority. The Economic Development Authority had requested to look at that, and so we did, and obviously, the amount of time of 45% isn't really a true reflection of the time of the community development director, so we have moved it down to 20%. So you're going to see an increase of that 25% of the salary of the community development director now coming in to this community development budget, and you're going to see that there's going to be a reduction when we go to the Economic Development Authority when we look at their personnel services. Tough budget when it comes to everything else that you're going to be seeing in the general fund because there are not a lot of huge increases that you're seeing. Again, here, supplies expenditure increased $775, which represents 19%, but again, it's only $775. We're seeing contractual services increase in here about $15,000 or 18%, and that's because of the change from community development directors. We had one, our prior community development director, before our prior community development director, we contracted all of our planning services out. Our former community development director, if I say this without getting tongue twisted on this one, had that was their specialty. Planning, and so we did away with that contract and only did it on an as-needed basis. And so now, again, as we're changing community development directors and some different focuses and different talents that are there, we're going to need to utilize the planning services a little bit more than we have from the prior year, but still below what we were at if we were to look back 2-3 years ago. And then there is a capital expenditure in this budget of the $60,000 for a update of the downtown design manual. And that's was one of my suggestions to remove it from this budget and have the Economic Development Authority fund that because it really does fit more underneath the Economic Development Authority. There was a meeting scheduled, I believe, last week, but there wasn't a quorum, so we couldn't have that discussion and have them formally agree or adopt that change. So it still remains here, but I'm definitely in hope that that gets shifted so we can drop that $60,000 and the levy impact that's associated with that by the time that we do our maximum levy, or it's going to be one of my suggestions that we do that when we do our maximum levy. So as you can see with the Community Development Department, there's not a lot of, I guess, extra that's built into many of these, and especially in the general fund that is in there. But I will separate each one of them and kind of talk the same way in each one of the departments. But if there's any questions on the community development budget, would be more than glad to answer those before we move on to the inspection budget.
page are you on? I'm trying to navigate this here.
Well, the community development budget is in your page numbers 23 to 25 of 77.
That's what I asked.
Close. And you'll start off with the personnel summary, which basically is showing that .25 change, because, again, the community development director's position is being.
22 of the packet that you
Thank you.
Oh, I just printed it off. Show 20.
It's
Weird.
22 of the packet, but
Oh,
showing
sure.
a different number because of
Yeah.
the budget's printed separately in it.
I have a question.
Yes.
With all the things that are going on, you know, we have pressures on their budget, and it looks like we're maybe missing a community and admin services director as well, according to this summary, that is not a current role. Correct.
Correct. There hasn't been that position since 2021, prior to 2021.
So my question is, do you feel strapped for time and energy, or do you feel like you can handle all the different buckets of work that you're currently managing? And then, you know, can you foresee that, you know, what that work will look like in a couple years, maybe?
Yeah, I certainly do feel that I can, you know, again, 2.5 months here, still learning a lot of the processes and workflows here, but in those 2.5 months, I feel comfortable that between myself and our 3 staff members, that we are adequately handling everything. In a couple of years, I don't envision any major changes to the staffing in the community development department, but again, need a little more time to kind of be here and kind of get acquainted with everything before I make any recommendations. It's a hard question to answer.
Yeah,
Only being here
that's
for-
very fair, and I appreciate that very much. I'm thinking like this from a grant standpoint, because we received so much in grants like POWSI, for example. Would like some FTE towards like a grants person help pretty much pay for itself, and then they could also maybe help with some projects?
I definitely don't think that is a bad idea or that it would hurt. I think I would probably test the waters by contracting for a contract or for a grant writer first to see where that's at. Part of the reason is I think you just heard Riley's response, and that allows him to have a little bit more time in understanding his staff, what that workload's going to be, but yet it also gives somebody who has that expertise, which is hard to find, for somebody who can seek out those grants, do the appropriate grant writing, and secure those. But obviously, you've done an excellent job of forwarding information. We do try to get as many grants as we can, but there isn't that staff there. I would try to start it out with a consultant, first of all, and there are a number of consultant companies that do provide that service. And then we could kind of, again, I'm going to rely on Riley, and because he has a tremendous amount of expertise. Wait till he gets comfortable, and then if it's something that we need to actually put up part-time or a full-time FTE that has that ability, plus can help some other demands that come up. So that would be kind of the route to go about that way, but fantastic suggestion onto that.
Thanks.
Any other questions on the community development?
I have questions in terms of like the permits. It sounds like the partnership with Rum River is going very smoothly.
It is. I actually have experience working with Rum River in my previous city, so I was very familiar with them and happy to see that they were here when I joined North St. Paul. We've been happy with them, at least since I've been here, and we're looking at changing some of our permitting software and some things to kind of help streamline some things, but overall, I've been happy with them, yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yep.
They have a presence here too, that they're here a couple days a week, or is that
Yes,
still
correct.
happening?
Yep, he's here 3 days a week? The baseline? Yeah, so what I was referencing was baseline software, it's baseline technology is what it's called. It's a, basically, it would take the place of OpenGov. For all permitting, it is proprietary to Rum River, and so they have a lot of experience using it, and we've been kind of kicking the tires around and thinking about it, and likely will be making that change, implementing that change probably in the next month or two, would be my guess. So just a minor change, but we think it's going to be a good addition.
It may help free up some of your staff's time.
Absolutely, yeah. Yep.
Is there concern with proprietary data in their software being able to be shared back into the city in the event we choose someone else down the road?
No, everything that is, all of the permits that are handled would become property of the city essentially, so we would keep all those records, that would all be transferred to us.
When you say that it would help maybe with the flow, are they going to be, is it going to be helping with people that are staff not having, because of the integrations tighter?
Correct, yep. Not only that, but from a resident contractor point of view too, kind of that front-facing component of it, I think is going to be a lot more streamlined too.
Like user-friendly?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Great.
And you can see, we process a lot of permits, and so, I think that's a good thing that we're looking at that.
Councilmember Cole, to kind of give a little bit more of insight onto that, when the former community development director was here, we looked at the baseline. There's always an option that if at the end of the 5 years we decide to go, we could do an RFP and they don't get it, that we do have the option that we could actually purchase that software. But in addition, that software has some integration currently that it'll work with Laserfish. So permits will be automatically put into Laserfish for us, so we'll have a much better data retention than we do today. So there's a lot of positives that Baseline does provide for us moving forward.
Because I just remember multiple conversations 3 years ago now, probably, of switching up some of this software, and with it being proprietary, some of the records may not transfer over. So that was my primary reason for asking.
Yep, no, good point. But we had checked those out when we were looking through with Baseline. So yes, so there's opportunities. So the Baseline software is actually its own entity, separate from Rum River. It just happens to be developed by the son of the owner of the Rum River, very fascinating young man who's developed that with a partner. And they do very good support. So it does open that opportunity for us to, even if they were not in the picture, that we would be able to have that software in moving forward. That decision for us really needs to be made by the end of 2025, I believe, because that's the time that the 5-year contract that we have with OpenGov would sunset and give us the opportunity to get out of that at that point in time. So Riley has his hands full with that too.
When you later, that's your digital storage, Laserfish?
Pardon?
This digital storage?
Yes.
So right now, is somebody taking that information and putting it in then to digital storage because it's not a pass-through?
Correct.
So that's a help with that. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on community development before we move on to the inspections department? Okay. The inspections department, it really, there isn't a lot in there. There's basically one line item. It's underneath the contractual services. You're going to see that it decreased $50,000 or 10%. It's compared to the previous year's budget and based upon our 2025 estimation of our permits. Any increase or decrease in this also has an impact on the revenue side to it for permitting. If you remember the contract, that of the charges, they retain 75%, we retain 25% of that. So if you look to make further reductions in this line, we also have to reduce the revenue side to it. So I think we're, if you look at the past history on the inspections, it's a very unpredictable area. You can see in 2021, it was about 340,000. Then on 2022, it's 708. 23, 486. We've got a budgeted for 500,000 in 24, and then 450,000 in 2025. We're tracking a little bit lower right now this year, but we're also tracking a little bit lower on our permit revenue too. So it's kind of it's a guess is the bottom line with that. And that's the only line item that's in there. There are no personal services associated with that department, supplies, capital, or anything else. Any questions with the inspections? Not hearing any, I'm going to move on to the recreation, and the recreation budget is a very small budget. We allocate 0.05% of our community development director's time there. And if you look at the budget, you're seeing just a $622 increase in personal services, which 622 represents 7% increase. Again, it's cost of living, wage step increases. Supplies are increasing about $1,500 or I'm sorry, decreasing $1,500 or 29%. And contractual services are decreasing $231 or 1%. Probably the biggest part that's in the recreation budget is where we also fund the community or the Arts and Culture Commission. So really, there's not a lot of money budgeted for, I was going to say, really the recreation components, because we really don't have a true recreation program in the city. But are there any questions with that? And again, that may be something that, you can see the FTEs in the past. That may be something that gets, enhanced in the years to come, especially with the Parks Commission doing a number of studies on the parks. Currently, they've got HGA under contract doing 3 parks, one being the McKnight Complex. We're out with the RFP for the community center. There definitely can be some synergies in those reports and finding out that may generate a need for more of a programmatic component that the city doesn't have today, and that could be either staff or that could be consultant. But really can't make that determination until those reports come back to us. And then City Council has the opportunity to digest that and to see that. But at this point, to budget something that we have no idea isn't the greatest idea. And as a conservative finance director, I can't recommend that we do that without something to substantiate. But I definitely can see something like that moving forward in the future.
Yeah, I had a meeting or got together with coffee with the Maplewood mayor. They use Rev Sports, and I passed that on to the staff here, and they said it's been working very well. They're able to take that off the plate, and they get all their sports. They got a lot of sports that you normally you don't have with the like karate and all the other stuff. So they've been very happy with it. So passed it on to look into it.
And that's part of when you have a city that's smaller in size, to have your own staff on board. There's multiple experiences and discipline that you need to have. That's hard to find in one individual in most cases. So you end up, being able to do that, you have to have multiple people, which is, I'll say more cost prohibitive or more of a burden to our residents. So that's where contracting is a better way to look at that, because they have that expertise.
We have the land, they have the expertise.
They have the expertise, absolutely. Any questions on the recreation budget?
No, thank you.
With that, we're going to, Riley and myself, we're going to try to team up on the HRA and the EDA and kind of give you kind of an overview of those. I'll lead on the HRA and he can take the EDA lead. He didn't know that, but just throw that out there. The Housing Redevelopment Authority, basically it's, its activities are provide the administrative direction for the North St. Paul Housing Redevelopment Authority. The HRA monitors affordable, market rate and senior housing. Resources for the rehabilitation of blighted properties are administered by the HRA. The HRA is a legally separate organization with an independent taxing authority. The governing body consists of city council members, with management of the city having operational responsibility. One of the biggest components that the HRA has been doing for a number of years that you're well aware of is the student-built housing program, where you take a blight property and you turn it around into a home, and you move it, and you sell it, and you move it on. Back a few years ago, we had dropped the levy pretty much to zero because it pretty much cash flows itself just by the purchase of the property, the costs for construction, and then we turn around and sell it. That's been kind of the pattern for multiple years. Last year, we increased the levy from $0 to $11,000. This year, it's being proposed to increase it to $50,000. When we meet next Tuesday, and it was one of my options to not increase that $39,000, I am, again, on Tuesday going to tell you not to increase that on $39,000, to leave it at the $11,000, because we've been cash flowing, unless somewhere the program changes and we have additional need, but we're sitting on probably about $500,000 in cash in the Economic Development Authority budget itself. So we're good to keep doing with the programming that we're doing. In addition to that, part of the, I think it's 0.25 sales tax that the state of Minnesota instituted last year, we've already received $42,000. That's our first half. So this year we'll receive $84,000. That is specifically for low-income housing. So there's another component that's on the plate of our community development director, is that we will end up having to develop some sort of program to utilize those funds in the future, and then bring that for city council support and direction on that, because that'll be accumulating over time. So there's really not a lot that is in this HRA. If we look at it, the personnel expenses are increasing about $5,000, 7% against cost of living and its step increases. The HRA does not have any supplies expense. Contractual services have increased about $5,200 or 36% to the prior year. And that's really just due to some of the increased costs that we've seen in the past due to the general contracting and consulting services line item. And then the capital side to it, and the capital is increased $85,000 or 29%. That is the cost. That capital cost is for the student-built housing. But again, it's being greatly offset by the revenue that we receive from those homes. So right now, and I believe even this latest one, we're still, there's a profit that's coming in, so it's increasing our cash in the fund, and that's part of the reason why my recommendation will be not to increase that levy at this point in time, especially in the tough levy year that we have. But with that, do you have any questions? Either myself or Riley will try to answer that.
Here. Thank you.
Councilmember Wong has something.
How's you?
Yeah, I'm curious on what, your thoughts are around the HRA budget when it comes to when we're making such a large gap. Do we, is there thoughts around what those funds would be contributing to outside of a student-built program? Are there other ways that could help, that you see would help residents?
Well, I'm going to do the wise thing as a finance director, and I'm going to turn it over to our community development director here onto that. But I think it's an area just like that point. This is my only piece to it. Just like that 0.25% of the sales tax, there is something we're going to have to do for low-income housing. I think, we had a resident come up in one of our public meetings and talked about that, instead of building this house that's, $400-some thousand, if we were lower in that $300,000 range, in other words, it's not a 2,000 square foot home, it's a 1,400 square foot home. That, we're increasing that affordability piece to it. And so that's something that we need to really, look at, develop. And I think a lot of that's going to come out, and I know some of the council members, if not all, are aware. We have a low-income community, very diverse. I think that's going to become even more crystal clear as we get the results from the HGA. We get that information that's going to come out from the RFP for the community center. So there does need to be something developed. Again, from a budgetary standpoint, it's kind of hard to budget something until we've got something concrete. With that, I'll give our Riley an opportunity to make any comments. Again, he's got much more experience in this than I do.
I would really just piggyback on what Dan said. I think there's going to be some opportunities for us to assist with the low-income component. And, Councilmember Wong, I think you're correct about some of the sale proceeds of that student-built house and what can we do with it. And so that's something that, between Brian and I and Dan, we'll sit down and start figuring out some plans, what to do.
I also assume for that money that we have in that account now, they got to float money as they build a house. So there's stuff going in. It's not like it's 500 grand just sitting there. They're going to have to buy all this and, cash flow it in and do all that stuff.
Yep,
So it's,
that is accurate.
thank you.
Any other questions on the Housing and Redevelopment Authority? Okay, we'll move on to the Economic Development Authority. You want to take it, or should I just keep on going? Again, from a staffing perspective, you're going to see that there's a reduction of that 0.25 that I had mentioned earlier in the community development budget, and that's a reallocation of our community development director's time. And I think it better reflects the true time that our community development director is spending on the Economic Development Authority. The description of the activity for Community Development Authority is this: they administers the North St. Paul Economic Development Authority. They provide support for the economic development of the city, and its goal is to build a strong and adaptive local economy. The EDA is a legally separate organization from the city with an independent taxing authority. The governing body consists of 7 members, 2 of which are city council members. There's a lot of work that's happening at the Economic Development Authority itself. They're looking at a facade improvement program. So just recently, there's been drafted some program and application. Again, it was to be presented at the last meeting. Again, there wasn't a quorum, so that'll be presented in the next meeting. But really, the intent of that is really to look at our businesses, at least on 7th Street and Market Street, and to make sure that, we're improving the looks of those entities in hopes to attract more businesses. to the downtown area. The city has invested a lot of money on 7th Street. And there's been some, recent developments that you're well aware of that are in TIF districts, with the Sentinel Building and then the Article 7. So we're really, from an economic perspective, we're building that density. And we're trying to hope to attract, to get more businesses down there. They do have a levy. The levy's been static for, I think, probably about well, 25 would be about the fourth year. I think that it's been the same. We're having it at about $201,000. The majority of their budget is in personnel costs. You can see the allocation that's there for the city manager and so forth, and community development director. In a comparison to prior year, this year it's decreasing $8,300, or a 6% decrease. So that decrease it's accounting for cost of living increases, step increases, but then it's being offset by that 25% reduction in the community development director's time, which is more than the increases of the cost. Supplies budget is really only increasing $100. And then contractual services budget is increasing approximately $11,000, or 21%. Part of the discussion from the Economic Development Authority is to maybe hire a consultant to help spur on some of that economic development in our city, instead of necessarily utilizing the community development director themselves. Again, it's just one of those reflections. Small city. How do you have somebody who's a community development director do this, and this? And you heard all the responsibilities of just the the community development department itself. And so, even though Raleigh probably could do it all, it's really spreading ourselves thin. And then there are some specific areas of or specific consultants that do have that expertise in helping that spurring on economic development in the downtown area. Riley, is there anything you want to add to that?
You did a great job.
One other thing is that, which is not included in this budget at this point in time, is that $60,000 if they choose to fund that updating of the downtown manual. It would come out of the general fund. It would end up being in this Economic Development Authority budget. With that, any questions?
I'm going to make a comment, and
Sure.
So it sounds like we're seeking the design manual to be re-upped. And then that's going to be like finished probably like a year from now. And then we're also launching the facade program. So is there some direction that will work now? Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
little-
I don't know a lot about it, and I caught that as we were looking at that. And so Riley and I had a conversation. I'm going to turn it over to Riley, because part of that downtown does have specifications for the facades. But Riley and I had talked, and he's got fantastic response.
Yeah, we certainly talked about that. I mean, it's real kind of a chicken or the egg type scenario. So I think that is one of the reasons why we're recommending not doing the 60,000 in next year. Buy us a little bit more time, and then kind of resetting the trajectory, the path of, okay, what needs to happen first, because you're right, they both kind of feed into each other. So that is something that we're going to be looking at for sure. Yeah, we talked about that just the other day.
And that's part of the discussion that we wanted to have with the Economic Development Authority, and have that information for you tonight. Councilmember Cole and Mayor Mungy, that you got to hear a little bit of a preview of what you're going to hear at the next Economic Development Authority meeting. Any other fantastic question?
One more.
No, one more? Good.
So in the past, I've kind of referenced the Arts and Culture Commission interested in maybe collaborating with the EDA around maybe murals. Is that something that's feasible in a downtown facade program at this point?
Yeah, that is certainly, I have actually a little bit of experience in my previous city working with a muralist, I think is what it's called, in doing something on just kind of a large blank space right in downtown. Turned out great. And I think that is something that Mai and I had talked a little bit about as well. So I do think there is some good opportunity to collaborate, kind of, again, combine a lot of these projects together, and I think it certainly makes sense to look at for sure.
Awesome, thank you.
I guess for also behind the scenes for the EDA is we've been doing, cleanup as far as across the street when it comes to the Margaret. So we got all the PUDs thanks to the staff, and so we're getting the land appraised and ready to go. So that has been behind the scenes, so it's been good to get that going too.
We're working on an RFP for that, so.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any further questions on Economic Development Authority?
I'm just joking.
Oh, yeah. Okay, if there are none, then we can excuse our distinguished Community Development Director for this evening. I want to thank him very much. It's been, an honor right now, just in 2.5 months, just to see the talent that he's brought to the city. It's been very, very good. So look forward to, more time and see where we can move forward. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Riley.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Riley.
Here comes the headliner.
Bar's been set high, Ray.
Yeah, that's great.
The opening act. That's gonna be your new nickname. Where's the opening act?
As Ray gets set up here, actually, I was glad that I scheduled it this way after he showed me his presentation. It was kind of like that. But I do have to say that it wasn't really an opening act because Riley did one heck of a great job. So I can't go that far.
I'll headline my next tour.
Okay. I'll
But,
be your backup.
So I can just add some filler here if we want until he gets it all set up.
Another rain came through, so we just seem to be
Yeah.
getting, comes and goes. There'll be no wake again on Silver Lake, the way it's going again. So don't
lot of-
paddle so hard when you're over there next time.
Nice swim the other day.
Nice.
All right, well, I think our police chief, Ray, is all set and ready to go. And so I'm going to turn it over to him so he can go through his presentation. And then I will kind of talk about a little bit of the financial impact of his budget, and then we're both open to any questions that you may have. Again, this is quite an honor. Again, like I said, when I first started here, he was the interim police, really kind of got a bond to him. He's just one of those salt-of-the-earth type of individuals, and it's really good to see that he ended up, getting into becoming our permanent police chief. So with that, watch what he does now.
All right. Drum roll.
Mayor, council members, city manager. Daniel, thank you for those kind words. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to be here tonight to give my presentation. For the police 2025 budget presentation. Some of the items that I want to cover tonight will be, our PD's mission, community outreach, community policing, our current organizational chart, staffing road ahead, what that looks like, the 2024 calls for service quarterly report, and the BCA Joint Powers Agreement with the Violent Crimes Unit, our culture and wellness, and then closing with our recently released recruitment video that I'm sure you all got a chance to see, but we're going to close with that tonight. So our mission statement is we strive to enhance the quality of life in our community by providing compassionate and professional service with honor, integrity, empathy, and respect. You know, how do we do that? How do we provide for our community? We can improve the quality of life for officers and our community in a number of ways. Community outreach programs, community policing, our wellness programs, work-life balance strategies, and our diverse officers. Our community outreach programs, in our community policing, events like Shop with a Cop, Fish with a Cop, Coffee with a Cop, our up-and-coming Critton Remembrance Memorial, which will be on September 7th, honoring his 15-year anniversary, National Night Out, Fall Roundup Parade. These programs can help build bridges and break down barriers between police and citizens. Our community policing, this approach can help reinvigorate our community and deter crime. It can also help establish trust and respect between our law enforcement officers and the community. Our wellness programs, our organization strives to improve the mental health of our officers by providing access to mental health services, educational resources, and training. The work-life balance strategies that we incorporate, they can help our officers maintain a healthy work-life balance and include flexible scheduling, mental health support, physical wellness programs, develop and maintain a healthy work environment internally. Our law enforcement officers already have a stressful job in their day-to-day operations. We need to make sure we have created and keep good morale within the organization as a whole. And diverse officers. Having a diverse police force can help increase community trust and citizen cooperation. It can also help create a force that better reflects our community. Currently, this is our organizational chart. You'll see here the chief of police on top oversees our 4 sergeants and 2 administrative staff. Our 4 sergeants see a number of areas throughout the organization. They oversee the investigations unit, community service officer, the school resource officer, our patrol officers, and our Joint Powers Agreement agent, BCA Violent Crimes Unit, which is currently being serviced by Sergeant Fredericks. We have 1 investigator. We have a part-time community service officer. We have 1 school resource officer. We have 6 patrol officers currently, 1 of which is light duty right now, and we have 4 current vacant patrol officer spots. We have 1 sworn staff that is on leave. You'll see the 4 sergeants. I have them streaming off with the 4 categories there. Each sergeant is assigned a certain responsibility in these areas. So all sergeants won't be overseeing all of these areas. It might be 2 sergeants overseeing patrol unit, might be 1 sergeant overseeing investigations, and so forth. So currently we do have 6 patrol officers on our streets. And our current FTE is 22.75, and that's what our organizational chart looks like. We do have a second investigator spot. The reason I have it listed as 1 investigator is because of our shortage in staff, we can't fulfill that position. We have to keep that patrol officer on the streets to help service our community, which backlogs our investigation unit right now. So because of that shortage and because of those 4 vacant spots, we're unable to have a second investigator, even though it has been approved and we do have a second spot right now that is vacant in our investigations unit. So that's where we're at with our investigations.
How was the process for backfilling those spots coming along? Positive?
Yeah, and I'm hoping that as we move on through the presentation here, I'll expand on it, but we do have several people being in the hiring process right now, 3 of which are getting backgrounded. So it's looking pretty good. Fingers crossed, everything goes good and they get through the process. Our staffing road ahead, what that looks like is we need to meet the community needs and expectations to promote the best outcomes. By adding a second-in-command position, a deputy chief position, adding 2 patrol officers, which I would put as power cars, and adding 1 CSO, a crime analyst, and in researching more into embedding a mental health crisis unit right here at the PD. The second-in-command position basically would alleviate a lot of flooding that's going on in the chief's spot right now and in the past. In my view, just by my experience and seeing how previous chiefs had to take on this responsibility. And without that second-in-command position, we really don't have anybody to take on a scene when there's a critical incident. And during my time in the last 2 years, we've had multiple critical incidents, and as chief, several. And what that does is it strains the process of basically evaluating the critical incident itself and how we manage it. It puts us behind in how we are able to communicate with you folks, the community, the officers. Strategically, having the second-in-command position would be able to eliminate that and get information out the way we need to get it out. So that's a big part of the second-in-command position. And basically having somebody here that is going to be here in my absence. Right now, we have 4 sergeants, and we have a first sergeant who is Ben Badowich, who typically will be an acting chief in the event I'm not here or I'm out of town. But really, if he's gone, then we gotta put in one of our other sergeants as acting chief, and it just becomes now we got to make sure that all 4 of these sergeants are trained into this type of leadership role in the event that our first sergeant is not available. So something to keep in mind. The power officers basically are officers that these 2 officers basically take on the role of filling in time frames during a police schedule during the day shifts and the night shift. So we have a day team A and a day team B, and we have a night team A and a night team B. These power officers fill in on both sides. Our teams work a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. 12-hour shift, 4 days on, 4 days off. The power officers would be taking on the position of maybe a 12 to 12 or a 3 to 3, a 2 to 2, something that is going to have them do a crossover and help both teams out during their shift. So ultimately, if we're fully staffed and we have 2 power staffs, which in my time here, in the 14 years I've been here, we had we had power cars. I was one of them, I think, for a series, maybe 3-4 months. And then some folks went elsewhere, or, just the way it's been right now is, people come and they go. So that's how it was when I was on patrol and we had the 2 power cars and it worked out great. It was like you had a police car on every block. So it was amazing. Not only that, but we had the opportunity to get out of the car and then go meet people and, interact with the community. So that community engagement with those 2 power cars is very helpful. Adding a CSO, we have a CSO right now, Brandon Carbone, who is currently enrolled in a law enforcement program. He's our young man here in the photo. And he is going to be taking his post license in 2025 summer. The benefit of this is so good because it's a long-term investment. This CSO basically, while they're in school, is learning the day-to-day operations of your police organization and actually getting to, work side by side with the officers that he or she may get to work with after they're done with school. Brandon Cabron is most likely going to become a cop with us when he's done, and we're looking forward to having him. But adding that CSO would be great. Having 2 CSOs would be great for the community too. Our crime analysts, if we were to add a crime analyst, right now with our joint powers agreement with the BCA, we've had to lean on them quite a bit in Ramsey County for information that we would need from a crime analyst. The problem is we have to wait for it. Having the crime analyst here embedded in our PD is instant information. And when we move on to the presentation, I'll be talking more about that crime analyst spot. The mental health and crisis unit worker embedded. More and more agencies around the metro are getting these folks to be involved in their PD and work in-house. The great thing about this is, they go out to calls with the officers. The people that might be in crisis don't have to engage one-on-one with the officer, and they can engage one-on-one with the crisis worker, which then in turn might deter a use of force incident or, something else like that nature. So mental health crisis unit embedded can be good. The 2024 Crimes for Service Quarterly, you'll see here, if you look on the top, I don't know, is that a little too small for you guys? You'll see here on the top, let me grab my notes here. So far, the CFC report shows our first and second quarter stats. That's what you're looking at here for 2024. You can see according to these pie charts, the calls for service went up in the following areas from quarter one to the second quarter. Crimes against persons, 66 calls went to 73 calls. Crimes against property went from 67 calls to 84 calls. Quality of life, 269 calls to 317 calls. And other miscellaneous calls for service went from 967 calls to 1,059 calls. What's the trend here? The trend is we're consistently between 2019 to 2024, 2023, we've consistently averaged above 8,000 calls. And the 2019, we had 10,000 calls. And I do recall, I remember that year. That was a busy year. But 8,000 calls for our city to average, in a handful of these being critical incidents, where we've had to utilize outside resources, should say something. It should say that there's a lot going on in North St. Paul, and crime is steady. Joint powers agreement with the BCA Violent Crimes Unit. Like I said before, we've had to utilize their services several times in the months that I've been here. And the case is open. This is their stats. The cases they have open year to date, 158. A big one here is 356 arrests. The drug recovery has been phenomenal. The firearms recovery has been phenomenal. This unit, by us having Sergeant Fredericks with them, is priceless. And a perfect example of this was when we had the Casey Lake shooting. The BCA Violent Crimes Unit stepped in. They ended up taking on this case, but without them, we just wouldn't have been able to sustain this type of investigation with our current staff levels. One investigator, our sergeant of investigations, and myself. BCA came in, took over the case, and was able to, provide us with resources above and beyond our capabilities. Expedited BCA processing of evidence. If we were to process stuff on our own, that could take months. And this is a direct in, and they were able to get some evidence back quicker than we would have been able to. Along with the crime analysts that came in and were involved in this Casey Lake incident was great. There was the St. Paul PD Gang Task Force came in and helped us out. And that was all because of the resource of having Sergeant Fredericks be a part of this Joint Powers Agreement. Look at these guys. Look at this. That's Officer Devaney and Sergeant Goldbernson smiling ear to ear because they love working here, right? So I love this picture. It says a lot about what we have going on here and how happy our folks and troops are here, are glad to be here. So our goal is to keep our team healthy mentally and physically. This is a difficult task when we are operating with only 2 officers on the street during a 12-hour shift at times. We want to create a work environment which is desired to be a part of and retain our great staff. We have great people here, and they are tired. Burnout leads to frustration, and frustration leads to the unlike of being motivated to come to work. It's the last area that we want to see our officers get to. Our police officers have continued to step up and work the overtime when called upon and stay late or come in when they are needed. But this trend will not last. Sooner or later, they will look elsewhere, and it's not going to be because of the people they work with or the community they work for. It will be because they simply are tired of working shorthanded and not being able to engage in more opportunities. Our law enforcement officers are very close to each other, and this team is truly a family. We communicate with each other, and we lean on each other for professional and personal advice. This family-like tie that we have created here is difficult to build at any agency, but we are fortunate to have it here. I send out a lot of shout-outs to my team to let them know how great they are and how much this city appreciates them as a person and the work they do. I always let them know how damn proud I am to be their chief. I'm going to close this presentation with our recently released recruitment video. This is the first recruitment video our agency has done, and it turned out amazing. As you each watch the video, I would like you to take note at the smiles, just like the one you see, the 2 you see here in this picture in the video. They are truly happy to be here at North St. Paul PD, and they are truly happy to service this community. Take note at the family vibe I explained earlier, and you should know that we were going to run this video with cue cards. Instead, everybody wanted to just talk from their heart and say what they wanted to say to answer the question instead of having it, pre-made up. So what you're about to see is these officers talking from their heart about why they want to work here at North St. Paul. How do we get the sound on? Go here. North St. Paul is the kind of city you fall in love with. They really know people. We had this all worked out.
We tested this all out.
Yeah.
I blame Riley.
Always blame the opening act.
North St. Paul's the kind of city you fall in love with.
They really know you, and they get to know you quickly.
We're a small department, but we do get large crime.
We have the support from everybody around us, whether it's, our team or the community to lean on.
I believe that healthy officers create healthy and safe communities. That's why my #1 goal is making sure that everyone on the team has what they need to enjoy serving the community and being a part of this team. And that support extends to their families too.
If we have to make it to family events, we have the ability to leave early. We can take up to a month off each year, which is amazing.
You get to know the officers on an individual basis, not just a number which you might be in another agency.
We're always checking on each other. That's what you do as a family.
We have a lot of up-to-date equipment, new tasers, new body armor, helmets, new body cam systems.
I feel safe about coming to work, doing my job. Granted, it is dangerous, but we are given the tools and an advantage to take the safety approach when responding to calls.
As close as we are, with the equipment we got, the leadership we have, I couldn't see working anywhere else. If you want to be a DUI traffic car, you can do that. If you want to get into, predatory offender stuff, they'll let you do that. So I really like it that they let you spread your wings and let you kind of, see where your path goes in law enforcement. I don't think I would have been able to do that anywhere else.
If you want to work alongside a dedicated, professional, and multi-talented team, this is the place for you. We have opportunities for crisis negotiators, drone pilots, school resource officers, firearms and use of force instructors, less lethal instructors, social media coordinators, community outreach, evidence coordinators, SWAT operators, and special investigators. If you want to be a part of a vibrant, supportive, and growing community, apply today. So there you have it. Thank you.
Done. Next year Riley video.
Improvement video, Riley.
On the budget.
Very nice, thank you.
So now you can see why it was wise to have him go last. I met with Ray earlier this week to kind of go over this. And so this is now my 10th time that I've seen this. And every single time it gives me goosebumps. And I love Officer Allen. It's genuine when he talks about that family, and you just get the whole connection and the whole entire staff. It's just fantastic, and that's done underneath this gentleman's leadership. And he's done one heck of a job, great job since he's been here. We just need to see him get to that full staff level so we don't burn out our current staff. I'm going to quickly just go through some of the budget highlights and then open it up for questions for Police Chief Rosales and myself. The personnel expenditure budget, what you see in the thing shows it increased $346,000.
What page on, Dan? I jumped down, so I have to pop back up.
I apologize. It's in the budget packet is 22, or I have it when I printed it off, page 27 of 77. Is the summary component to it. There's no changes in total FTE from 24 to 25.
Page 22 of your print-off packet?
Page 22 is of the budget. If the print-off package, it says page 27 of 77. You got 26 on yours?
There we go. I'm at 26.
Oh, now I get it, because I got the agenda. First. I'm not very good with numbers, Riley, so. So it includes the cost of living. Again, it's consistent across all of the salary projections and wage step increases. What we have to look at here is that this also includes the officer that's in the BCA Violent Crime Reduction Unit. So if we were to reduce that because we get revenue, and it's included in the general fund revenue. If we were to reduce that, the personal services goes up $180,000 or 5% from the prior year, from 2024 versus that 11%. And it's just because the revenue goes somewhere else, but the expenditures have to show within the police budget. The supplies expenditure has only increased $19,000, but that represents 15%. Contractual services increased $67,000 or 10%. The driving components to it, and I have no idea how this was working with the prior police chief, there was no repair or maintenance for vehicles line item in the 2024 budget. However, the 2024 budget underneath Police Chief Rosales is still within budget. There was no line item for that, even though there's expenditures, and there's been expenditures in the past. So of that $67,000 increase, you're going to see $40,000 of it for vehicle repair and maintenance, which is very much needed. And then you're also going to see increases in the fiber enterprise fund for the technology internal service fund. And then capital expenditures, what they've had in the budget in 24 to 25 is a decrease of $8,000 or 62%. So not a lot of change outside of personal services, and I think you're seeing that consistently across each and every single one of our departments within the general fund, and that's kind of when I did the opening on the general fund in the levy budgets. I was very proud of what our department heads had put together and presented, because I think if we look from a very high overall level at the general fund itself, we're seeing personnel services increased 8% overall for all of the departments in the general fund. Supplies did not increase at all. Matter of fact, they decreased $55, but from a percentile, nothing. Contractual services increased only 1%. Capital increased 33%, but we also have to factor in that $60,000 that probably we will not be funding in the general fund, and I'll be making that recommendation. That may go to the Economic Development Authority or be postponed out another year. And then we're seeing transfers being decreased. So you can really see that this is a tough budgetary year as far as a levy impact that City Council has, because the bottom line to it is we haven't changed much in our line items. It's our personnel costs that are driving things. And I know, I believe on Tuesday, there will be an executive session where City Council will hear more about how union negotiations are going. And so what I have in the budget may not be enough. It may be enough. I don't know that at this point in time. So it's a tough budgetary position, but you can see that the police is well in line with the budgetary recommendations that were made from our city manager, Mr. Frandl, and all of our department heads, and they've done just an exceptional job as far as keeping it as tight as possible. The one thing that's out of their control, personnel costs. You're seeing, virtually no FTE increases across the board. We had a slight one of in administration, where we went from a part-time to a full-time, but then you also saw a reduction in the accountant's position in the finance department. So that's all about the budget. Questions for police and/or the budget in general, and you're going to have another opportunity in the workshop on the 3rd to ask me any question that you want and help me really establish that levy target that we want to do for our maximum levy. Any questions specifically on the police department while we have Police Chief Rosales here?
I do.
Yeah.
So, Ray, as discussing with your staffing, I think we all recognize that staffing is an issue with the police department here in North St. Paul, and it has been for quite some time. Can you explain to me, besides the video that you have, which is fantastic, what other recruitment strategies do you have to get officers in here?
I'm sorry. So since I came in as chief, we developed several committees, one of them being a community outreach committee and a recruitment team. Our recruitment team the folks that are part of that team are very excited to connect with folks. One, putting this video together over several months, getting over to colleges, getting folks that are calling us to inquire about community service officer positions, which we've had several people inquire about the community service officer position in the last couple weeks alone. So we've been staying in contact with those folks and reaching out to them, getting them here and giving them a tour or getting them to go on a ride along, and then just word of mouth. Whatever events that we go to, law enforcement wise or non-law enforcement wise, a lot of us are just saying, to the folks that are interested in policing or currently in policing, hey, are you happy where you're doing? Are you happy where you're at? Come check us out. Since I started in April, the end of April, we've had a handful of applicants, which is rare. I mean, we didn't have that
Okay.
in the past, as many applicants as we have now. So it's good to see that maybe our efforts are paying off. So that's kind of what we've been doing.
Okay.
Yeah. And thank you, City Manager. We restructured how, if you're a lateral, we restructured how our FTO program, field training program is. So if you're coming in as a lateral, there's now an expedited process for those on field training. Typically, our field training process would take 4 months. So if you're coming in with experience or as a lateral, that might be cut to 2 months. Just because you've been a cop, you know what it takes to be a cop. Now you just need to know the North St. Paul way. So that process gets cut in half, which is very attractive to a lot of people that are already a cop somewhere else. And don't want to go through a whole nother field training process. And so that was another thing that we implemented, yeah.
With a couple of roles that you have, that you'd like ideally to have, can any of those be combined?
I'm sorry?
Can any of those roles that you had thrown out there, just recommending the crime analyst, or analyst, excuse me,
Yep.
your second in command, can any of these, I'm just throwing those out there for now, I can't get to the PowerPoint, but can any of those be combined with the current role, or, having a crime analyst and a second in command for you, could that be combined? Have you explored any of that?
Yeah. It's possible, it's heavy, but with our current staff, we don't have anybody that would, one, have the time to take on these trainings that would be required,
Right.
As opposed to bringing somebody in that already is in tune with what that job role entails, would be more ideal, and probably more money saving on our end than anything. We have the 2 administrative staff and Kristen Churchill, which is one of our records persons. Being a crime analyst is a full-time gig. Your job is, to try to find out what the current trends are, and then to also, interact with multi-agency relationships. So we have the resources on hand right away. This person, if they have other duties, like Kristen has duties and records, so she's doing a lot of gun permits, she's doing a lot of stuff at the front desk, that would probably stall her from getting the information that she needs to get as a crime analyst. So I would say I'm not going to say no, but it would just be it would be snail-like pace, you know, for that, if we went that route.
Sure.
So,
Can you explain to me your shifts? You said you have a daytime A and B and a nighttime A and B.
yeah. Yeah, we currently work 12-hour shifts. There is, each team is 4 days on and 4 days off. Our day team starts at 6 a.m. and our night team starts at 6 p.m. So our day team will go 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. will be our night teams.
Okay.
And because we're down 4, we would typically be running 1 sergeant per shift, along with 3 officers per shift. We put, you know, if we get the power cars, now you have an extra officer, a patrol officer, on the street with the 3 other patrol officers, which is great because right now our sergeants are taking on a lot of patrol work, which sets them back in their sergeant duties. Yeah.
Are there opportunities to collaborate with other agencies, say, you know, having that extra person being able to float around, basically? Would it be feasible to say, hey, Maplewood and Oakdale, do we all want to go in on somebody to float around all 3? Or looking at it through partnerships?
Sure. I know, you know, some agencies, Hennepin County agencies have done that. I don't know in Ramsey County if any have done that. You get into a lot, it gets messy because when you intertwine with other agencies and you make that deal like that, now are they going off of our policy book? Are they going off of their policy book? So a lot of that comes into play. But then also, you know, what is their status? Are they part-time with us? Are they full-time with us? Are they under our benefits? Are they under their benefits? Whose uniform are they going to be wearing? There's a lot of logistics that go behind it, but ultimately, you know, do we want to bring an outsider into our agency that is working not by our standards, but by the standards of their agency that they're coming from, which then creates a whole mess of tension between these folks that are coming in on as part-time or full-time helpers per se. So yeah, there's a lot to go into that. Is it possible? I'm not going to say no, but I think it would be doing a disservice to what we've built as our culture, and then also a disservice to the community if we end up, you know, hiring somebody or getting somebody that really doesn't, you know, want to abide by how we operate, but, you know, not be as proactive as we want them to be. So there's a lot of that in there too, so to consider. So
You had indicated that you have some officers that are going through some background checks, or potential, I should say, that are going through background checks. So I believe the number was 3. So if they were to be, we got them cleared. We would just need 1 more
yeah.
to fill.
Yes.
Okay.
And typically, you know, from start to finish, the hiring process, you know, from the time the person submits an application to the time, if they make it through everything and gets on the street, could be several months. With the laterals, it's a little different because they're coming from another agency and they've already had either a background and a psych and everything done. Their process can be sped up a little bit more. So, you know, it might be cut down to like 2 months, but you're still looking at a very, you know, large window between when they apply and to the time they actually get on the street.
Right.
So with these folks that are in the process right now, hopefully October.
Okay.
If everything goes well for them, October or November. So we still have that hurdle of between now and then to manage with the staff that we have. So
Same process for a new officer that then needs to spend time with like an FTO out in the field that doesn't have that lateral experience.
right.
How long was that process?
That's about 4 months.
Good performance.
So for them to learn the policing operations. So, and then on top of it, with that, field training, we have a handful of field training officers, but then they have to take turns each phase. There's 4 phases, and they have to take turns with that new recruit, and that can be stressful. So it's a tough job being an FTO. I was one, and it's challenging. It's a little different teaching somebody that has been a cop to somebody that hasn't never been a cop and is just coming out of school. So it takes a lot of work.
How about the mental health crisis? I mean, that's something where I did phone work for a bunch of crisis centers and different things like that. Is that something that's going to be more outs? You have a team there? How is that going to look
Yeah,
as
right.
far as that?
So right now, great question, Mayor. Right now, if we get called, and if you guys are looking at your pie charts there and you see the area where it's the person in crisis or welfare checks, those calls can be combined. The call might not come out as what it is, and then it might be a crisis call, but it's not being noted as a crisis call. So the stats are off in that area. But if right now, if we have to deal with a person in crisis, and we get called to that person, we're the first to meet with this person, and we recognize that this person may need some help with the crisis team. Now we got to call that crisis team. Hopefully they're going to answer. Hopefully they have staff on. And if they do, it could be anywhere from, a few minutes to a few hours before that person might receive the help they need. And typically, if it does take our officer out of service for a long amount of time, then we might reach out to our medical team, our ambulance or our fire, and say, is there any way you guys can come out and evaluate? And he or she might get transported to a nearby hospital. That's a long process, right?
Was this a third party now that you're talking about when you're saying calling to get a crisis team? Is that some other unit?
It might be Ramsey County.
Ramsey
Crisis.
County, okay.
Yeah.
And then our officer has to stay there until somebody from there shows up.
Exactly. By incorporating this embedded worker, now he or she that's embedded, we can go to their office and say, we got this call. Would you like to come out with us, or can you come out with us? They come out with us right on the spot, do their evaluation. We don't even have to be in the picture now, but we will stand by. But for a lot of folks that are in crisis and they see our uniform, it could escalate. It could make them more stressed, as opposed to having somebody that's in plain clothes go out and handle the matter and just have our services stand by. But either way, that embedded social worker is going to be able to make a decision a lot quicker than our current situation. So whether that be, yep, we need to get you we need to get you to the hospital, or we have other resources that can come out right now and help us out. So, yeah.
Is that something we could look at teaming up with a group on? Because then it's not what you're saying, the culture and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. I will say, I met with the South St. Paul PD a few weeks ago, and they have an officer that's designated to working specifically with their embedded social worker. And this officer is always in plain clothes. And they have a great program going where the folks that they consistently deal with, they go out and check on them, just randomly. They don't necessarily wait for a call to come in, but that engagement, the feedback has been phenomenal for South St. Paul. So it sounds like they're doing a really great job at managing the folks in their community that might be suffering from, crisis.
So is this like a Monday through Friday? It doesn't sound like it's 24 hours if it's one person.
Right.
How does that work?
Right. So they do have the Monday through Friday person, but they have an overnight person too.
So they have two then?
Yeah, yeah. And don't quote me, I forgot the name of the program, but they're through Dakota County.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
I see everybody thinking. Any other questions?
Your patrol on light duty, obviously, I get an idea of what that is. Do you suspect that they'll be back?
In 3 to 4 months.
Okay. Excellent. And what are they, can I ask what they're currently doing?
They are assisting our investigations unit.
Okay,
Yep. With administrative work.
perfect.
Taking phone call reports.
Excellent.
I ask you one other thing. Now, we have another school that's going to be opening up in September. Do
Do, yeah.
you see anything as far as, I mean, I shouldn't say open up, moving from,
Yep, from Maplewood into
To here.
Webster. Yeah. Myself, Joe Allen and myself, Officer Allen, who's a school resource officer, we got to go over to the school and get a tour and meet the staff over there. And we also got to meet the new Assistant Superintendent, Andy Beaton, I believe is his name. Very nice gentleman and very nice staff. It sounds like they've got everything in good order. They've got a real good strategic plan in place. We did, because we're cops, so, we're always about the what ifs. And they had an answer for all of our what ifs. So it's all new to them, and it's going to be new to us. So we're going to just evaluate as we go along and collect our data, and then make the appropriate changes as needed. So Officer Allen will be spending most of his time at North High, which he has done in the past. And they're going to work out an agreement between Webster and the Webster staff and North High to,
so you're still comfortable with one SRO at this time?
at this time,
Okay.
yeah, at this time, we feel pretty good.
Okay.
I'll let you know in the middle of school year.
How far along is Brandon?
He is.
What's that process, I should say? Like, how long do you have to,
Yeah.
can he?
Yeah, he's doing the law enforcement degree through community college, and then it's a 2-year program. So he'll be graduating in summer 2025. And the nice thing for him is, I mean, when I graduated, 1% of my class was getting hired as a cop. He is going to basically be coming in right into a cop job. But he's coming into an agency that he's familiar with, people he's familiar with, community he's familiar with. He's already well-known in our community. So he's way ahead of the game.
Cool.
Yeah, top quality guy, yep.
Yeah, he is. Out of these staffing, out of your staffing road ahead, what is your number one? What would you really like on this list?
Second in command.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thanks.
You have a, excuse me, a second one?
The second one?
All of the above.
Yeah, deputy chief would be great.
A deputy chief, and then would you, and then what other position would you prioritize after that?
That is a wonderful question. I think the power officers would be a huge addition. The CSO, the extra CSO, the investment in that is, I mean, more and more agencies are adding CSOs just for this purpose of that investment, knowing that, you know, when they're done with college, as long as we say, hey, go to school, work with us, learn our way, and learn our community. After you're done, you'll have a cop job with us. It's a great recruitment. It's a great recruitment tool, and it's a great retainment tool too. So, deputy chief and the power officers would probably be the top two picks out of this group.
But your number one
Number one
today would
Number one
be,
today would be the deputy chief, the second in command position.
okay.
We've been very fortunate. We've been very fortunate in our critical incidents. I think strategic communication is a huge, it's critical. We got to have it when we have critical incidents. You folks need to be in the know. The community needs to be in the know. Our team needs to be in the know. The media needs to be in the know when we have the big events. So having the second in command, you know, when I got the call for the Casey Lake shooting and responded to the scene, and the sergeant, patrol sergeant at that time, was running the scene, it just made me think about this and why we don't have someone above the sergeants and below me able to take on these incidents like this and be available. It would have been great to have, and don't get me wrong, I got endless phone calls and compliments about how Sergeant Gulbranson handled that whole incident. She did a great job. But she got taken away from her duties of managing the scene. We would have had the deputy chief respond. He or she would have been able to take on the role of managing the critical incident, and then myself managing the strategic communication aspect of it. So that call tree and that streamline needs to, that could have happened. We managed it well, but we were forced to cram all of these steps into certain areas. And I think, this could be alleviated and eliminated and definitely relieve some stress on everyone that's involved in these incidents. So, yeah.
I have a question about the SRO. You're adding one more, so we have one now. So you want two running at the same time is what you would prefer?
I'm sorry, Mayor, can you
To run two people at the same time?
You would want to
As
have two
kids?
SROs,
Want to
right?
have two
Two
SROs,
SROs.
yes. So there'll be two going, because right now this kid's going to graduate.
Oh,
that young man.
CSOs, yes.
Oh, did I say it wrong? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
Community
CSO, too many initials, sorry. I apologize. CSO.
Acronyms.
Yeah, so right now we have the one. How long is this, I'm just trying to understand a little bit more. How long is the program again for them? to their end?
Usually 2 years.
2 years, yep.
Typically, you'll have a CSO. The reason you hire a community service officer is because he or she is pursuing law enforcement.
Correct.
And typically, they're either in school at the time they apply or hired, or they're just starting school. So right now, Brandon's in the middle. Well, he's pretty close to being done. So if we were to have another CSO, he or she would now be able to take on the reins. And we wouldn't have to go through the whole process of Brandon at the end of his CSO career here coming up, teaching somebody in a span of 2 weeks. This person could learn the whole time, this other person. So it's kind of like just a leapfrog effect, and that's what a lot of surrounding agencies are doing. They're just bringing in a CSO in the middle of another CSO's, midway through school completion, and then they keep utilizing their CSOs for future cops.
Well, that's what I'm looking at that as
Recruitment.
exactly, as something that's a little bit higher on the list, because what happens if, would you hired somebody out of school, let's say you hire a new officer that wasn't our guy, how long would it take before he's effective? As far as learning our stuff and, North St. Paul, if you just hired somebody out of a program somewhere and hired him in North St. Paul, how long would it take him to learn our ways?
If it's a traditional, officer coming up, if it's someone that's.
Brand new.
Brand new.
I'm saying brand new.
4 weeks, or 4 months.
4 months, okay.
Yeah.
So with this new ones coming out of that program, I'm assuming that 4 months is a lot less, our CS.
The CSO.
CSO, yes.
Yeah, the CSO would be the same. The
4
CSO
months?
would be 4 months, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But he
they
knows
already
the
know our
inside,
way.
he knows a lot more
Yeah.
about it.
So there might be certain areas he or she's gonna excel in.
Sure.
Because they already know certain task, within each phase.
And you already know if they're a fit as far as cultural.
Yeah.
That's the big thing too,
That's a
is
big
how are they gonna get along, how is that gonna work with us? Where that 4 months, you're trying to figure that out with a brand-new person.
Yeah, yep.
So that's where I was going, where Councilmember Schwer is, this is more of a recruitment thing, because, we put that time into them, and
Yeah.
it does make sense to not start all over, have somebody half semester, like with a school program, where out, new ones in, the other one's halfway through,
Yeah.
and that does make sense. Because I don't know what kind of a budget when it comes to us for CSO is.
We used to have two CSOs, yep.
Okay. Yeah, CSR in my world is customer service. record, so that's-
Same with me.
I got all screwed up, sorry. But I really see that as a benefit for everybody,
Yeah.
because they look at their culture. All right, thank you.
I have a question. In terms of like scope of response and skills sets and services that a CSO provides, how much of it overlaps with, say, a patrol officer or another role?
I would say, percentage-wise, I would say 80% of what CSO does, our CSOs do, is gonna translate into their cop world. Everything they do, they learn to multitask, they learn to respond to calls, they learn to talk with people, they learn to make an arrest, they learn to use our CAD system, they learn to write reports. Yeah, it's a huge chunk, yeah. So, that's why I say Brandon's gonna be way ahead of the game when he comes on. Because some folks that are in school and that haven't had that opportunity to really be engaged the way he is, and just learn what they've learned in school or skills, and not really have that communication factor in place, plays a huge role, so. Brandon knows, a lot of our community members. He knows how a lot of folks like to be talked to and how a lot of folks don't like to be talked to. So he knows a lot of our crime areas. He knows a lot of our, not so much crime areas, and our community events. He knows all the community events. So, yeah.
He's a very familiar face. The CSOs are a very familiar face in our community.
Yep.
They can take somebody down to jail, or they can.
Yeah.
Yeah, what can they not do?
He can't take any police reports or any police calls where there's a suspect or there's a victim. So, animal complaints
Okay.
he goes to, parking complaints he goes to.
Does he
But,
carry a weapon? Does he?
he carries a taser and mace and his baton. He does a lot of our police trainings with us.
Okay.
So he stands in as a role player on some of them, which he probably doesn't like so much.
Doesn't like to be the tackling guy, tackled guy?
Yeah.
So he can assist he can come to assist you if there's something
Yeah.
as backup, kind of.
Yeah, or he might transport a suspect to jail for us.
Okay.
Which now we're able to keep a cop on the streets.
Awesome.
Instead of leaving the city, which is huge. So, and he does work a lot of overnights or a lot of night shifts. So helps our night people out. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I see I see the burnout in your role as well. So I mean, there's a lot. So I see where the need for a deputy chief police is there as well.
Yeah.
I really like the idea of the power officers. Yeah, so.
You know, if I can speak on a personal level as being your chief, I miss the opportunity to get out and engage with the community. It's something that I was hoping to do more of in this role. Administratively, just get a little bogged down. So this second in command position can alleviate a lot of the administrative work, which typically that's their role. So I also feel like I miss out on getting the officers more attention to the issues that they're dealing with. I think it's a big part of my job, and I haven't been able to do that. So, yeah, I wish I could be out there more and get to know the business owners and get to know, the folks at the churches and, just get out on a walk on 7th Avenue and just go say hi to folks. And just be engaged more in the community itself is challenging. So I love what I do. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. And I just wish I had the opportunity to. I hear a lot of other chiefs getting the opportunity to do such things that, like getting out in the community and being a part of that. Yeah, so,
I can say we miss you at the car shows.
yeah.
We miss the officers down at the car shows.
Yeah, and that's another thing, we put out the overtime, but everybody's so, exhausted, they don't want.
They're tired.
They don't want to work the overtime, so, yeah.
I'm wrapping my head around just the second in command for you and what that would look like strategically as this person would support you. Would this person be an evenings person? Obviously, when you're on vacation, they would support administratively. If we are short of officers on staff, I mean, everyone jumps in. I mean, it's just all hands on deck. I think that's where wherever we work, we're all like that.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit more? Like, do you have anything that have you brainstormed as to if you were to receive this position, what that would look like?
Well, it would make it easier to delegate tasks and responsibilities. It'll help ensure our officers uphold policies and procedures and maintain accountability. There's a lot of times where, I can't look at every report. I can't be on every shift. City manager knows I tried to change up my schedule a few times here and there, and I like to work the overnight shift with the boys and girls at night and be here so they can see my presence. So having that other person above the sergeants would be great. I think the foundation of an organization to be successful all around begins with leadership. And structurally, having your chief and the 4 sergeants and not having that deputy chief, that second in command, makes it challenging to keep it in good order. Having that deputy chief is someone who is basically a liaison and can help manage the patrol unit, the investigations unit, the sergeants, and the administrative work. Taking it all on alone, I won't say alone because right now I'm utilizing, 2 sergeants heavily on some items, but at the same time now I'm pulling them away from what they're supposed to be doing. So, yeah, it, basically continuity, delegation, accountability, morale, community service. All those things would encompass the, deputy chief position.
Aside from union details, if any of us were to go to your staff and say, what's one thing that you wish you had in this department? What's that one thing that's been talked about that they may want?
More people.
Okay.
Yeah,
One more time?
more people.
More people?
Yeah. But then again, we have 4 vacant spots that we got to fill. So,
Exactly.
we got to get across that first.
Sounds like you're on the right, you're on the right path, though. So,
We even with the struggles right now, staff wise, the people we have here don't want to leave. They love it here. They love what we've built as a culture. They love working for this council, for the city manager, the organization, the community. So it as their chief, that says a lot. That says a lot because there's so many other agencies out there that are willing to give lateral. I guarantee one of our officers $20,000 to come over to their agency. But they love it here. They love the family we've built. So, yeah.
says a lot for your leadership, too.
Thank you.
I don't have any more questions on my end. All I have to say is thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you to your staff for everything that you guys are doing and have continued to do, and for the moments of uncertainty and things that pop up, like the Casey Lake situation. Although it was minimal staff, you guys rocked that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, as we dismiss Ray, see why I say, see why he had to go last? Yeah, he did a fantastic job. There's one other kind of component in it, you see it in his talk and the way he is who he is, and you see that genuine person. Part of his leadership is he did not come in here asking in this year for FTEs. He's got a plan. The reason why he didn't ask is because he does have those vacancies, and he needs to play that out to see exactly what he has, even though that means that he's got a little bit extra of a load and he's not quite getting to where he is, but he's willing to make sure first, get my staff taken care of, and then I'll look at the other components as we move forward. So I was pretty impressed in my conversation with him on his leadership style and how he went about that. And, so kudos to our police chief Rosales, and thanking him very much for being here. So thank you, sir. Are there any other questions related to any of the other budgets? And then I have an ask of your homework, since it's Labor Day weekend for all the council members.
Well, I think the main stage act was great.
Wasn't it?
I'd like to see the opening act pick it up a little bit.
I would too. Oh, you're still here. So if there's no other questions, my ask is that you really do go through the budget documents and be prepared on Tuesday in the workshop to be able to, any questions that you have, any outstanding questions that you may have, any insights onto, where you want to be with that maximum levy. The presentation for the workshop is now posted. So you'll have that to look at, since you'll see I've got a PowerPoint presentation. I do have listed a few unknowns that were in the budget. And so I want you to be able to be prepared to be able to give me direction on what you want to see on that 17th. And I'm going to be pushing you to give me that direction on the 3rd, because I'm going to need it, because it's going to be a quick turnaround to get all the documentation ready and prepared. So,
Are we good with the normal time for the meeting on Tuesday? Can you fit it in, the 5:15 to 6?
yeah, my part, I've got the presentation going through. I want to share information. It's got tax impacts. It's got some other information I want to get from you. If by chance we run all the way through, could we add it to the end of the city council meeting? Just if it needs to be carried over? That way we don't hold up city council,
Yeah.
but then can carry it forward afterwards. because we really do need to get that.
I just want to make sure we
Yep,
don't cut
sure,
something short.
yep.
Right, I agree.
Absolutely. Fantastic idea. Thank you, Mayor. All right. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you all.
Once again, this is absolutely a pleasure. I'm very happy to work for the city of North St. Paul underneath your leadership, underneath the leadership of Brian Frandl. And as you can see, our department heads are getting better and better and better, and we really have built one heck of a great team here in North St. Paul. So I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, all the great presenters today. Appreciate it. All right. Now it's time to have Mr. Cole get ready. So moved. Second?
Second.
Second. Councilmember Wong, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We will see you on September 3rd.